The Virak Dominion's warships hung in the void like serrated blades, angular and glimmering with the pale green glow of their ion reactors. Across the battlefield, the Zelthari Consortium's vessels rippled with eerie bioluminescence, their hulls grown from living metal that pulsed as though each ship had a heartbeat. The system of RYTHMAR had become a stage for annihilation. Nebula gas drifted through wreckage fields, shattered asteroids spiraled in strange orbits, and silence lingered on comms channels only because both sides were waiting for the other to blink. The war had dragged on for centuries, yet neither side could claim true victory. Virak commanders prided themselves on discipline, honor, and relentless pursuit of victory, while Zelthari tacticians boasted their superior intellect and flexible strategies. Entire moons had been burned away, countless species displaced, and still, they fought as though locked in an eternal stalemate. Admiral Scoreth of the Virak stood rigid on his command deck, his armored carapace reflecting the green glow of tactical screens. His mandibles twitched with restrained impatience. Their fleet weakens. Another barrage, and the Zelthari shall finally learn respect. He spoke as though his words alone could bend the outcome. Across the divide, High Coordinator Isira of the Zelthari flexed her tendrils as she reviewed incoming reports. Calm but sharp, her voice slid like silk over the comms. The Dominion's arrogance blinds them. We need not match their firepower, merely adjust. One more maneuver, and their flagship will expose its underbelly. It should have been another day in the war without end. Another clash destined to add wreckage to the debris field, another temporary victory paraded as progress. Yet whispers of something else stirred through the fleets. Rumors, unverified and laughable, but persistent enough to make even the most disciplined warriors pause. A junior Virak officer broke the tense silence. Admiral, sensors detect an incoming object. Its speed exceeds Dominion and Consortium propulsion limits. Its trajectory is directly into the conflict zone. Scoreth's mandibles clacked. Reinforcements? The Zelthari wouldn't dare attempt such a reckless insertion. On the Consortium side, similar confusion unfolded. Coordinator, a Zelthari aide said, her voice quivering. The signature is strange. It is neither Dominion nor Consortium. Its energy output fluctuates in irregular pulses, chaotic, almost musical. Isira's tendrils stiffened. Identify the intruder. The answer came slowly, reluctant, as though speaking the name might invite disaster. Human. The word rippled through both fleets, whispered on encrypted channels, spoken with disbelief and half-laughter. Humanity was a fringe civilization, a primitive upstart that barely counted as a galactic participant. Their homeworld was described in archives as a mud ball that smelled of methane and burned hydrocarbons. Their technology, when catalogued, seemed crude, clunky, and graceless. And yet, the legends persisted. Entire empires swore humanity had once cowed them with nothing but absurd unpredictability. 1,000 years ago, a single human frigate had allegedly forced the retreat of the Krillth expansionist armada. Another tale told of a colony defense force of humans who defeated an invasion fleet simply by overloading their reactors in a suicidal bluff. Except none of them had actually died, because the humans somehow survived their own explosion. No one could ever confirm these accounts, and most scholars dismissed them as exaggerations. Still, the galaxy remembered enough to whisper when the word human surfaced. Admiral Scoreth felt the first tickle of unease in his thorax. It is only a rumor, he muttered to himself. Yet the unease lingered. The incoming vessel grew visible on tactical displays, and the unease became dread. Its profile was unlike anything in Dominion or Consortium design. It was not elegant nor efficient. The hull was jagged, asymmetrical, and bristling with strange protrusions. Parts of it appeared reinforced with plating scavenged from different sources. Its structure was not sleek but brutal, a machine built to survive anything rather than impress anyone. The Zelthari bridge fell into silence. Isira whispered, "Why does it look patched together?" Her aide responded in a trembling voice. "Coordinator, its outer shell is painted. Painted with crude markings." Symbols scrolled across the display. A shark, baring teeth and wearing sunglasses, stretched across the bow. Strange words stenciled near its hull. USS UNF *Wythable. No one spoke. Across the battlefield, both fleets froze, neither side daring to fire a shot. Then the audio channels picked up a signal. At first, it was incomprehensible noise, static and distortion. But as the frequency cleared, something bizarre poured through the comms. Music. Not orchestral, not choral. Not the solemn battle hymn sung by Dominion warriors or the harmonic tones favored by Zelthari fleets. This was raw, loud human music. Guitars wailed, drums thundered, and a voice shouted about living on a prayer. The Dominion's comm officers stared at their consoles. Is this psychological warfare? War chant, a Zelthari strategist whispered. Their rhythm prepares them for bloodshed. The rumors were no longer myths. Humanity had arrived. Both sides scrambled to calculate new strategies, but none came. If they attacked the humans together, they might prevail, but they would expose themselves to each other. If they ignored the humans, they risked annihilation. Paralyzed by mistrust, both fleets watched in silence. On the human vessel, Captain Rebecca Alvarez leaned against her command chair, chewing gum and tapping her fingers in rhythm with the music. Well, boys and girls, looks like we just crashed someone's dinner party. Her voice was casual, amused, as though she were hosting a game night rather than piloting a warship into the heart of the most destructive battlefield in the galaxy. Her second, Sergeant Hank O'Malley, grinned under his battered cowboy hat. Two fleets, star-spanning empires, a whole lot of shiny toys, and they're staring at us like deer in the headlights. Feels like prom night all over again. Dr. Raj Patel adjusted his glasses, scanning his console. Captain, you realize the entire galactic net is probably watching this right now. Our first impression is, how do I put it, a bit much. Bex smirked. Raj, subtlety is for people who don't have nukes strapped to their torpedoes. On the alien sides, Skorath clenched his claws, Isira coiled her tendrils, both searching for a plan. Yet the only truth was undeniable. The battlefield had frozen. The centuries-old war, the grudges carved into stars themselves, all of it stalled in the face of one absurd, impossible fact. Humanity had arrived, and no one knew what would happen next. The silence stretched, thicker than the nebula clouds. Both fleets waited, breath held, weapons powered but unmoving. The humans, oblivious to the weight of galactic history pressing down upon them, blasted another track, something called Highway to the Danger Zone. And for the first time in centuries, neither side wanted to fire the first shot. The galaxy had frozen, and no one dared unfreeze it. The human warship drifted into the contested zone like a heavyweight stepping into a bar brawl, uninvited, unimpressed, and utterly unconcerned with who had started the fight. Its armor looked stitched together from mismatched plates of steel, titanium, and whatever else humanity had decided could survive being shot at. Parts of the hull still bore scorch marks from old battles, and yet the ship radiated confidence, a kind of swagger no alien vessel could replicate. Inside the command deck, Captain Rebecca Alvarez surveyed the void with a lopsided grin. She was broad-shouldered, her hair tied back in a no-nonsense bun, and her uniform was half-buttoned as though regulations had never applied to her. Her gums snapped as she leaned on the armrest of her chair, posture relaxed despite the thousands of alien weapons pointed at them. She thrived on tension, treating every crisis like the setup to a punchline only she knew. Sergeant Hank O'Malley stood near the tactical display, cowboy boots braced against the deck. A long scar carved across his jaw told of more than a few close calls, yet he wore his grin like armor. He tapped the brim of his hat and chuckled, the sound low and reckless. Cap, I think we just broke up their little lover's quarrel. Look at 'em. Neither one's got the stones to blink. His drawl turned the words into a joke, but his eyes stayed sharp, cataloging every blip on the radar. At the science station, Dr. Raj Patel pushed his glasses higher on his nose and muttered into his console. He was younger than the other two, brilliant, but perpetually exasperated by the chaos around him. His brain worked at light speed, Yet he had the nervous air of someone who always assumed the universe was out to prank him personally. I'm reading heat signatures from both fleets. Their weapons are primed, their targeting arrays are locked on us, and we are, by all reasonable calculations, seconds away from being reduced to cosmic confetti. Bex snapped her gum again. Reasonable calculations are boring. We don't do boring. Raj groaned. We also don't do survivable, apparently. Hank barked a laugh. Hell, Doc, survivin' is what we do best. That and scarin' the bejesus outta anything with more than two eyes. Outside the ship, both alien fleets remained frozen in tense silence. Admiral Scoreth of the Virak watched with mandibles clenched so tight the chitin creaked. His instincts screamed at him to fire, but the myths clawed at his thoughts. The humans' arrival was not coincidence. It was omen. Across the void, High Coordinator Asira stared at the strange vessel with equal parts fascination and dread. She saw not crude engineering but deliberate unpredictability, a weapon of psychological terror forged into metal. Neither dared act first. On the human bridge, the standoff felt like theater. Beck stretched, rolled her shoulders, and spoke with mock boredom. So, Raj, what's the verdict? Are they going to keep staring at us? Or are we supposed to do the dramatic opening move? Raj replied without looking up. If you mean are they going to shoot, probability stands at 84%. If you mean are they going to hesitate because they fear us, probability stands at... Raj. She cut him off with a raised brow. You're doing it again. Doing what? Being a downer. We're making history here. Smile a little. Hank snorted. He'll smile when his math learns how to duck laser fire. Bex leaned forward in her chair, speaking loud enough for the crew to hear. Listen up, people. Out there, you've got bugs with honor codes and squids with superiority complexes, both thinking they run the galaxy. But right now, they're scared of us. They don't know whether we're crazy enough to start something, and they're right to wonder. Her words lit sparks in the crew, murmurs of excitement rippling through the deck. Humanity's strength was never elegance or logic. It was audacity, the refusal to play by anyone else's script. Bex knew it, and she wielded it like a blade. The comms crackled. An alien voice, heavily accented, filtered through. Unidentified human vessel, this is Coordinator Asira of the Zelthari Consortium. State your intent or vacate the battlefield. You are disrupting balance. Bex arched a brow. Did she just tell us we're disrupting balance? Hank, did you hear that? Loud and clear. Cap, guess we're the rude guests at the dinner table. Raj whispered, horrified. Please, for once in your career, don't antagonize the people with plasma cannons. Bex ignored him and hit the transmit button. This is Captain Rebecca Alvarez of the USS UF ***** Why the bull? Intent? That's classified. But I'll tell you this much. If either of you fires a single shot, I'll consider it a personal insult, and I'm real bad at taking insults. Silence followed, heavy and suffocating. On the alien bridges, commanders exchanged nervous glances. The humans hadn't even threatened conquest, hadn't made demands. They had merely implied retaliation, casual and absolute. It was madness, but the kind of madness no one wanted to test. Scoreth finally hissed through his mandibles, opening a direct channel. Human vessel. You interfere in matters beyond your capacity. Withdraw, or we will annihilate you. Hank muttered under his breath. There's the bug bluff. 10 credits say he's sweatin' under that exoskeleton. Bex kept her voice calm, even playful. Admiral Scoreth, was it? You sound real confident for someone who hasn't fired yet. Maybe you're thinking about those old stories, like the Krillth Armada. One ship, one crew, whole empire running for the hills. Ring any bells? The Virak bridge fell into silence. Scoreth's mandibles twitched. He did remember. Every warrior did. Back on the human ship, Raj rubbed his temples. Captain, are you deliberately provoking a galactic incident? Bex smirked. Provoking? No. I'm just reminding them that poking the crazy monkey is a bad idea. O'Malley leaned closer, lowering his voice so only Bex could hear. Cap, reckon they'll blink first? She grinned, eyes fixed on the viewport. They always do. The music shifted tracks, a thundering anthem with pounding drums. The human warship held steady, engines humming, its painted shark grin glaring into the void. Across the battlefield, two ancient fleets, armadas that had shattered civilizations and carved history with fire, hesitated. For the first time in living memory, their centuries-old war had stopped cold, not by treaty, not by exhaustion, but by the arrival of a single human ship and a captain who refused to flinch. Tension coiled like a spring. One move, one spark, and the galaxy would erupt. Yet none dared move. Humanity had entered the field, and the rules of war no longer applied. The standoff balanced on the edge of chaos, daring anyone, to make the first mistake. The first shot came not from courage but from accident. A nervous Zelthari gunner brushed a tendril across a control node, and a plasma beam lanced through the void. It missed the human vessel by kilometers, carving instead through a drifting asteroid and scattering molten fragments into both fleets. Silence followed, then a single human voice carried across open comms, a slow, incredulous drawl. "Well, hell," Hank O'Malley said, leaning over the tactical display. Somebody flinched. Rebecca Alvarez didn't hesitate. She snapped her gum, eyes glinting with mischief, and barked, "Spin us 90 degrees. Raj, bring the forward batteries online. Hank, cue the playlist." Raj Patel's voice cracked an octave higher than usual. "Playlist? We're seconds from being vaporized, and you want background music?" Bex grinned as the opening notes of Highway to the Danger Zone thundered through the ship's speakers. "Correction, Doctor. We're seconds from looking legendary." The warship roared to life. Engines flared, cannons spat fire, and the patched-together monster dove straight between the two alien fleets, as if daring them to aim carefully. The Zelthari panicked first, scattering like startled squid as the human vessel's barrage ripped through their formation. Their sleek, living metal hulls weren't prepared for the raw brutality of nuclear-tipped projectiles duct-taped to torpedoes. "Who even does that?" Raj shouted over the alarms, clutching his console for balance. "We are violating every known law of engineering and common sense." "Exactly," Bex said, rolling the ship into a corkscrew that left even the inertial dampeners groaning. Common sense never won a war. The Virak responded with disciplined volleys, beams slicing through space with surgical precision. But precision meant nothing when their target refused to fly straight. The human ship zigzagged, flipped, and looped with reckless abandon, each maneuver less predictable than the last. What seemed suicidal was, in practice, impossible to counter. On the Virak bridge, Admiral Skortha's mandibles clicked in fury. They're not fighting, they are flailing. Yet every attempt to predict the humans ended with his own fleet's ships colliding or firing upon one another in confusion. Meanwhile, Isira of the Zelthari gripped her chair with trembling tendrils. This is not strategy. This is chaos. And chaos cannot be calculated. Inside the human vessel, chaos felt like home. Hank hooped as a Zelthari cruiser erupted into flames under their guns. "That's what I'm talking about. Just like the 4th of July. Raj peeked through his fingers. "Do people understand we are actively antagonizing two superpowers at once?" Bex fired back, without missing a beat. "Raj, relax. They were already antagonized. We're just helping them focus on something other than each other." The comms crackled again, alien channels bleeding into human systems. Shouts, commands, panicked orders. Across the galaxy, feeds began broadcasting the encounter, every civilization watching in stunned disbelief. Commentators whispered, "The humans, they fight as though war is a game." And for humanity, it was. Every dive and roll echoed dogfights from half-remembered movies, every explosive strike punctuated by the pounding soundtrack of Earth's ancient rock anthems. The central conflict sharpened with each passing minute. The aliens wanted humanity gone, erased before their legend grew further. The humans wanted only to survive, and perhaps, in their own irreverent way, to enjoy the spectacle. Yet survival alone wasn't enough for Rebecca Alvarez. She wanted to prove a point. that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or numbers, but audacity. Cap incoming, Hank shouted as a Virak dreadnought loomed ahead, its cannons charging. Bex leaned forward unflinching. Raj, if I told you to reroute every ounce of reactor power into the main gun, could it hold? Raj's face drained of color. It would hold long enough to fire, yes. And then it would destabilize and probably detonate. Good enough, she said. Good enough? Doc, you worry too much. Fire on my mark. The dreadnought unleashed a barrage, white-hot beams carving toward the human vessel. Bex waited until the last possible moment, counting down like a coach calling plays. 3, 2, 1 now. Raj slammed the firing controls. The human cannon, overcharged and screaming with strain, spat a single bolt of impossible energy. It tore through the dreadnought's shields, punched into its core, and ripped the ship apart in a blossom of fire. The detonation lit the void, painting wreckage in orange and gold. The battlefield froze again. Entire fleets stopped mid-engagement, stunned that one patchwork human vessel had just obliterated a ship considered indestructible. Bex exhaled slowly, gums snapping. Well, that was satisfying. Hank tipped his hat with a grin. That there's one for the history books. Raj slumped in his chair, whispering, We're all going to die. Spectacularly, but still. On alien bridges, disbelief curdled into terror. Skorath raged, demanding explanations no one could give. Isira whispered to herself, They aren't strategists. They aren't tacticians. They're improvisers. Across the galaxy, civilian watchers replayed the footage, trying to parse the madness. Some laughed nervously, some trembled, but all agreed on one truth. Humanity had just changed the rules. The two alien armadas, once united in rivalry, now shared something far worse, a common enemy they could neither understand nor predict. Their ancient war paused, redirected by fear of what the humans might do next. Inside the human warship, alarms still blared, consoles flickered, and half the systems ran hotter than safe limits. Bex leaned back in her chair, satisfied. Not bad for an evening's work. Question is, do they back off, or do we crank up the volume? Raj groaned, burying his face in his hands. Please let it be the first one. Please. Hank grinned wider, eyes gleaming with mischief. I dunno, document. I'm kinda curious what happens when we turn it up. The battlefield held its breath again, the galaxy watching with it. Whether the next move meant surrender or escalation, one truth remained unshakable. Humanity had entered the fray, and nothing would ever be the same. The quiet after the destruction of the Virak dreadnought was worse than the battle itself. Both alien armadas lingered in the void, their formations broken, weapons still armed but motionless, like predators frozen before an incomprehensible prey. Smoke and sparks danced across the human ship's consoles, but inside, the crew's mood was more exhilarated than fearful. Rebecca Alvarez leaned back in her chair with her usual smirk, gums snapping in rhythm with the fading echo of explosions on the view screens. They're hesitating, she said softly, more to herself than to anyone else. And hesitation, gentlemen, is opportunity. Raj Patel's voice cracked as he gestured to the flickering reactor readouts. Opportunity? Captain, we're one system overload away from spontaneous self-vaporization. I'd argue our best opportunity is to retreat immediately before they realize our ship is essentially held together with duct tape, prayers, and whatever questionable substances Hank keeps in his locker. Hank O'Malley chuckled, unperturbed by the chaos. Locker's clean, Doc, unless you count the bourbon. And I say we stand tall. Look at him out there. 2 whole empires, and not a one willing to throw the next punch. They're scared stiff. Bex tilted her head, her grin sharpening. That's the thing about fear, Hank. It spreads faster than fire. Once it starts, the whole house comes down. On the Virak flagship, Admiral Skorath clutched the railing of his command platform, mandibles quivering. His officers avoided his gaze, unable to offer strategies that accounted for the humans' madness. Precision was useless. Discipline had failed. The humans had annihilated a dreadnought through sheer recklessness, and now the Dominion stood paralyzed, honor curdling into dread. Across the divide, Coordinator Asira's tendrils trembled as she weighed her options. Retreat meant humiliation. Attack meant possible annihilation. The humans had undone centuries of strategic calculation in minutes, not with overwhelming force, but with chaos wrapped in confidence. She could not calculate their next move, because even they did not seem to know what it would be. That realization frightened her most of all. Inside the human warship, alarms shrieked warnings of reactor instability, but Bex ignored them. Her eyes were locked on the void, where two entire civilizations hovered, leaders sweating over her next decision. She felt the weight of history pressing down, yet treated it like a casual card game. Raj. Status. Reactor at 130% capacity, hull integrity compromised, and comms antenna half melted. If we sneeze too hard, this ship collapses into a glowing tomb. Translation. Still functional. She winked. Good enough. The comms flared again. Skorth's voice, jagged with restrained fury, cut through. Humans, you dare interfere in wars that are beyond you. Withdraw at once or face annihilation. Bex smiled, teeth bright in the dim light. Admiral, you keep saying that word. But here's the problem. You had your chance. You all did. And instead of annihilating us, you froze. She leaned closer to the mic. And in war, freezing is losing. The silence that followed carried more weight than threats. Skorth ground his mandibles, knowing she was right. Asira broke the silence next, her voice smoother but laced with fear. Human captain, what do you seek? Surely not conquest. You lack the numbers, the fleets, the empire. Bex chewed her gum thoughtfully before replying. Conquest? Too much paperwork. We just like making an entrance. But if you're asking what we want, let's say we want the galaxy to stop underestimating us. And maybe stop shooting at each other long enough to realize you've got bigger problems than your old grudges. Raj stared at her in disbelief. That's remarkably diplomatic. For you. She grinned at him. What can I say? I'm full of surprises. Hank leaned back, crossing his arms. Sounds like you're suggesting they call a timeout, Cap. You think they'll bite? Bex didn't answer. She didn't have to. Out in the void, the alien fleet shifted, their formations unraveling further as commanders whispered in private channels. They were terrified, and terror made allies out of enemies faster than treaties ever could. The Virak and Zelthari had spent centuries locked in blood feud, yet in this moment they shared a single unspoken truth. Humanity had to be watched, contained, maybe feared above all else. Their war, once endless and unquestioned, now felt suddenly petty. For the first time in generations, neither side wanted to continue. On the galactic net, millions of species watched the live feeds, stunned. Commentators scrambled to explain. Some called the humans demons, others saviors, others madmen. But all agreed, the balance of power had shifted. A single patched-together warship, crewed by unpredictable primates, had done what centuries of diplomacy could not. Force the galaxy to stop fighting, if only out of sheer fear of what those humans might do next. Bex exhaled slowly, letting the tension ride her shoulders before tossing it aside. Well, she said, standing from her chair, that was fun. Anyone else hungry? Raj sputtered. Hungry? We just destabilized galactic politics in a single evening. Exactly, she replied. And I burn a lot of calories when I'm making history. Hank tipped his hat, grin wide. Tacos. Bex nodded. Tacos. Across the battlefield, no one fired. The fleet slowly retreated, whispering amongst themselves, unwilling to provoke further chaos. The humans didn't chase, didn't gloat, didn't press advantage. They simply turned their patched-up warship away, blasting more 80s rock, as though the entire affair had been nothing more than a spontaneous joyride. Skorth stared after them, claws digging into the railing. Asira whispered to her aides, We must never let them catch us off guard again. The galaxy exhaled, shaken, confused, forever changed. Back aboard the USS UNF Wythable, Bex leaned against the viewport, watching the stars slide past. For the first time that night, her smile faltered, just for a heartbeat. She knew what the others didn't yet grasp. This was only the beginning. Humanity had shown its face, and the galaxy would never unsee it. Fear had bought them peace for now, but fear had a way of turning into something much more dangerous. She popped her gum, grin snapping back into place. "Let's see how long before they try again," she murmured. The warship sailed on, its crew laughing, bickering alive. Behind them, the galaxy trembled. Ahead of them, chaos waited.